Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 175. On today's show, you heard from Kaylee Jackson, host of The Talk on 97.7 Mountain Home, about how to stay patient in the field so you can create more hunting opportunities. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to join Kaylee Jackson, and Kaylee's the hostess of Mountain Home 97.7 FM, where she hosts The Talk. Kaylee, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it looks like you've been doing some hunting in 2015. Why don't we just start off the show and talk about the game animals that you took? And I'm looking at a photo of a pretty nice aoudad here. So why don't you tell us the story?
Well, I did. I got to go a chance to go down to Texas and hunt some exotics, and the first day I got there, I flew in on the plane, and if anybody knows me knows I have so much trouble at the airport, so I would kind of got through the airport security and everything, and got down there, and my guide said, "Hey, you want to hunt this afternoon?" And I'm like, sure, we'll go hunting. So I picked up my bow, and we went out there, and we sit out there, and it was 107 degrees that day, hot. Couldn't get no hotter.
Way.
It was 107 that day in San Antonio, and right outside of San Antonio.
Oh my goodness!
And it's a lot different than whitetail or elk hunting, that's for sure. Anyway, so we got out there, and I kind of got sleepy, so I kind of put my head down on the end of my bow, on the edge of my bow, and kind of took me a little nap there. Well, about dusk dark, we hadn't seen anything but a couple of black bucks come in. Nothing was really stirring. It was just really too hot. Well, about dusk, I said, we might as well call it an evening, and let's just go in and we'll catch it first light in the morning. And I stood up, and I looked out the front of the blind, and I saw something move in the corner of my eye, and I looked again, and here come two aoudads up. And I sat back down, and at that time, she pulled up her rangefinder, and she said 68 yards, a little too far for me, or in my comfort zone. So I let them get a little bit closer, about 50 yards. I said, okay, I'm on, telling myself, okay, I'm fixing to draw back. I drew back, and at 47, about 5 whitetail walked in front of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So I'm sitting there, and I hold the bow, and I'm holding it, and I'm like, okay, if one of them moves, I'm shooting. So about that time, one of the bucks, moved aside, and I let that arrow fly, and it bucked and snorted there for about 2 seconds and ran off, and it was dark then. So we really couldn't search for them because there's a lot of ravines in that area, and there's, rattlesnakes, and you got panthers and stuff out in that area, and so, and the Mexican folklore, whatever you call the chucabla, or whatever you call the thing, that's one of the things that they talk about out there. Anyway, so the next morning we get up, and about 500 yards from where, as the way the crow flies, as you would say, we found him, and he ended up being a silver in the safari book, which I was very proud of. He was a very, very nice aoudad, and I was just lucky enough to be able to take him with the bow, because most folks don't take an exotic with their bow.
Well, congratulations, lady, and I also understand that you're going for the National Grand Slam. What does that mean?
The National Grand Slam was started by a group of hunters back many years ago. There's 28 species in the National Grand Slam, and they range all over North America, and there's the Coues here, which is down, in the southern part of Arizona and into Mexico, and that's one of the animals also with that. And 28, and you do all 28 of them, and you're honored with by your fellow hunters with a plaque and certificates and things like that, different things, sponsorships from people, being able to take all of the animals. The hardest one, of course, would be a grizzly bear, because it does cost you a lot to do grizzly hunt. Very protective of the grizzlies up in Canada, the Yukon, and the Alaska area. So that's the hardest animal to be able to take.
Now, what number you're on? You said there's 28. So
I have 8 more to go.
No way.
I do. do. I have 8 more to go. My moose, one of my elk, and then my Kodiak and my grizzly, and that's just right off the top of my head. And I have my 2 turkeys, two of my turkeys, or 3 of my turkeys left to take.
So the turkeys are Osceola, Marion, Rio Grande.
Rio. No, I've got my Osceola, my Gould, my Rio, and my Merriam.
Now, is an Eastern a different one, or is that?
It is. An Eastern is, and a lot of places have Eastern. It's not just east of the Mississippi. Even up into Nebraska, you have Eastern turkeys. Eastern is it's not the largest, but it's considered one of the largest turkeys that you can take. They're not as elusive as the Osceola is. That's the hardest one out of the whole bunch to take. Merriam and Rio is kind of in between, and then you have your Gould and down into Mexico, into that area, into Texas.
Now tell us about the whitetail that's in that grouping.
The whitetail, to me, is the easiest hoof animal to hunt. If other than your sheep, which is you have to be able to shoot long distances most of the time on your sheep. Your whitetail to me is the easiest one to hunt, even though that you do have to have a game plan. But I've conquered that very long time ago with my whitetail hunting since I was 5. So I have 3 or 4 into the books. So I'm pretty lucky on the whitetail.
Now, is that Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young?
Pope and Young, and then I had 3 Boone and Crockett and 1 Pope and Young.
Oh my goodness! So you putting some bone on the ground?
I have. But like I said, I've been doing it since I was 5, and I learned I had one of the best mentors in the world, which is my grandfather, and he just made sure that I could do this alone, because he knew there would be a time that he wasn't going to be around, and that I may not have a guide, or I don't have a guide, of course, for whitetail, but a guide or a man going with me, so he had to make sure I could do everything on my own. Field dressing, bringing it back to the vehicle, being able to load it up, being able to bring it home and dress it myself. So he was a really great mentor for me, and I was very proud to have been able to hunt with him all those years.
When you took your Boone and Crockett, were you in the United States or Canada, or where were you?
I was in the United States, in Mississippi, matter of fact, and it was I was very privileged, because we don't grow big deer down in Mississippi. Every now and then you're going to get a really nice Pope and Young. You're going to get but Pope and Young more than you do Boone and Crockett, because they get so skittish during Boone and Crockett, during your rifle seasons and your shotgun seasons. So I was very privileged to be able to do that. I did that at 11 years old. So I was really very privileged and very honored to be able to take a massive deer, which was really, was a 9-point, so just huge spread on him, huge spread on him.
My goodness. You mentioned your grandfather. Let's talk a little bit about the hunting tradition and what he instilled in you, that we're seeing the benefits of it today.
The thing about my grandfather was he never had anything bad to say about anybody. Even if he didn't like you, he didn't say anything bad about you. So the one thing he instilled on me is to let people, if they want to talk, then that's what they're going to do. It doesn't matter what you do or how good you are or how bad you are, they're going to still talk about you. So the one thing that I try to reiterate with the kids nowadays is, find something nice to say about somebody, and be in hunting or fishing, and make sure that person knows that. Make sure people know that about that person. You may not like them, but say it about them. So my thing is, now with all the thing is not with anti-hunters that we have to come up against. Most of the time it's with other hunters or other anglers. Be it jealousy, be it just pure hate. I don't know what it is. I can't explain that. But he instilled in me to make sure that you always got something nice to say about somebody, and that goes with the hunting and fishing industry. Make sure you always got something nice to say about somebody. It doesn't matter.
And listeners, take that to know, because sometimes we're our worst enemies. And somebody puts up a doe and they go, well, why'd you shoot that? Or a small buck or whatever. And we take a second saying, hey, congrats. Well, we don't. And unfortunately, when I was younger, I sort of kind of did that too. We didn't have social media, but we'd be, in the middle of town going, oh, you could have done better on that one. And I wasn't positive. And the people look at you and go, well, where's yours or whatever. And it's something that you got to learn. And the sooner you do that, the better relationships you're going to build. Right, Kaylee?
You're exactly right. And that'll go into, I see a lot of children now hunting, a lot more hunting than back when I was growing up. And see grown men and women just really disrespect a child. And respects are in both ways. And you know that, Bruce. But disrespect a child that they may say, well, maybe I'm not good at this, or I'm not going to do this anymore. That may come a time, that they need to feed their themselves. How are they going to do that? May come a time that, that's something that they want to try, but they have a recollection of you saying something bad about a deer they killed. They're not going to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. So, just try to find the best aspect of what they do and give them a little praise for it and go on about your business.
Since you're a lady and you represent the fastest growing segment of the outdoor industry, that's the whole outdoor industry, not just hunting, but hunting, fishing, camping, hiking. Ladies are taken to the outdoors. Why do you think that's such a movement?
There's a lot of explanations for people try to explain a lot of things. A lot of it has to do with it's not a family core anymore, I think. There's a lot of women that are single, raising kids, divorced, raising kids, men the same way. So I'm not going to say it at women, but if we're talking about women, I think a lot of it has to do with having boys and trying to teach them how to, be respectful of the outdoors, how to, kill game ethically and morally, legally. I think a lot of it has to do with teaching their daughters how to take care of themselves if something ever comes up that, God forbid that they don't have anybody to help them, that they're able to do it themselves,
Yeah, and when I look at women, there's so many women on social media that, they go out and they hunt just as hard as a guy and sometimes are successful just like guys, or sometimes they're not. But it seems that women play fairer than men. Would you agree on that?
On some things I do. I think women are more apt to be able to control their anxiety more than guys. Guys get buck fever a lot quicker than women do, I think. They see a big 10-point, and to them, it's not a 10-point, it's a deer. That's the way I look at it. I don't see the antlers. I make sure that I'm legal, and then I worry about the rest of it when the time comes. As long as it's legal and I've got a good shot, a moral and ethical shot on the animal, then I take it. Where guys go, oh my gosh, it's a 10-point, and they get real hyper and, get antsy and, may spook it, may miss a shot, I just think it's more of a being calmer in the outdoors, not worrying about things as much as men do.
One thing I note in your bio that you're an archery instructor. Do you instruct kids, women, men, or everybody?
I do. I instruct everybody. It started out as for the school system. We started out doing it that way. We were going to teach in the school system, and things didn't work around into that aspect of we couldn't get any teachers in this area. So what my husband and I had discussed was we've been buying a 3D target, and we're going to buy some land, and we're going to just teach. If we're 18 and younger, it's going to be free, okay? Because you may have a parent that doesn't hunt, or you may have two parents that do not hunt. So we're going to give 18 and younger going to be free. 18 and older, you're going to have a fee to pay, and that's just to cover the cost of everything. And then men, women, it doesn't matter. As long as they're able to shoot, be it crossbow or a bow, or even recurve or longbow. As long as they're able to shoot, and as long as they can do that, then I'm all for trying to teach them to the best of my abilities the things I've learned. And I'm a novice hunter myself, a bow hunter. I've only been doing bow hunting for 5 years. The rest of the time has always been gun. I'm going on my 6th year this year. So I'm still a novice, but, I went to school, I learned, and what I've learned, I'm going to teach somebody else.
Thanks for that. And one thing I know, talking to people all over North America, is that we're continually learning. And what are some of the things that you learned on your aoudad hunt that you want to share with our listeners?
Patience. Got to have patience. A lot of people don't realize that boots on the ground, putting time in the woods before the hunt is very important to the industry, period. Whether you're, looking for that big, Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett, scouting is the number one thing. The second thing is your patience in the blind. There's a lot of people that get antsy, ready to come out of the tree stand an hour after they get there, or out of a blind after they get there. That's not going to get you a deer every time. 90% of the time, it's not going to get you a deer. Every now and then you get lucky and get one right when you first come in, but you know as well as I do, a lot of time is put on the ground in the sand and in the blind. So you got to learn patience, and you got to be able to adapt to conditions. 107 degrees, I'm used to the hot, and I love the hot, but 107 is really, really hot, especially when you're in Cambo and you got, things on that you wouldn't be running around in most of the time in 107 degrees, So you got to learn how to adapt to your situations, and and learn to do the best you can do, make ethical and moral shots, and then take home the reward for it.
Now, there's a lot of new information or people cooking up game. Have you ever thought about having a recipe book?
I have. My mother has. Let me rephrase that. I'm not the biggest cook in the household. My husband and my mother cook a lot more than I do. But I grew up with my grandfather and my grandmother were both chefs or cooks. My grandfather was in the Army, and then he went on to be the University of Mississippi. So he passed down a lot of recipes to me. My grandmother did also. She was over the field system, the dietitians in the field system. So we kind of back and forth all the time during whatever season's open or fishing season. We always tried different recipes. My mother even brought it up the other day. You need to sit down and start writing these recipes out. I'm like, well, it's a pinch of that and a dash of this, and I don't think, so it's kind of hard for me to do when you're used to just doing it off the spur of the moment and off the top of your head. So it's a big thing to do, and it'll be an achievement if I could get that done.
First, you got to put the game on the ground, right?
Yes, exactly right. You got to put the game on the ground.
Now, do you still hunt whitetails today, or are you just busy with hunting the other critters on the National Grand Slam?
I hunt as far as hunting, I don't ever stop hunting the whole year because we co-hunt, predator hunt, during our off season. So from September the 1st, which is the open day of dove season, till our season, we have the longest season in Arkansas both season of anybody in the United States. We go all the way to the end of February. The last day of February will be the 29th, the 28th, or the 29th. So I'm hunting every day from September the 1st to the 28th February, or every day that that's possible to hunt. As being, sometimes you have to let your health and stuff take precedence. But if I'm able to hunt, I'm out in the woods hunting, and then I go straight into fishing. And then during the summer times, we usually do the exotics and things like that.
Now, your bio says you do some bass tournament fishing?
I do. When I was growing up, even in my teens and 20s, I crappie fished all the time, and we got into crappie tournaments and stuff, and we did that for years. And then I got out of it. My late husband got real sick, and I got out of it. And so now a lady and I are going back, and we're going to start doing some bass tournaments in the South area, in the South region, starting this year, and hopefully work our way up into the Ladies Bass Classic and stuff like that.
I would like you to share with our listeners across North America why you're so involved in the conservation groups. On your bio, you've got a number of groups, the NRA, DU, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wild Turkey Foundation, and others. Talk to me about the importance of being involved.
Growing up, the first thing I ever remember being a part of was the NRA and the DU, or Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited was very near and dear to my heart because I grew up on the reservoir, and the birds come in every year was a spectacular feat. And the older I got, I realized, okay, as a hunter, I need to learn how to conserve my animals. What animals do I need to be able to hunt later on in life? I need to start conserving them now. People need to realize that you can be able to take 6 or 7, 8 deer a year. That's great. If you need them, then that's great. But don't always do it. There may be a family down the street that needs a deer to feed their kid with or something. Be able to provide for people in your community. But the most important thing is to be able to say the next generation of hunters are going to have something to hunt, or the next generation of fishermen are going to have that fish to be able to fish for. So my big thing is making sure the next generation always has something there to fall back on.
Listeners, if you're not involved locally, spend the $20, the $30, or the $40 and become a member, and just pick one and get involved. Now, just don't fill a seat at their annual banquet, but raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help out, because that means more. The time you spend is more than the dollars you'll spend.
Exactly, because like with DU, with the Rocky Mountain Elk Federation, there's things that we do. We make sure that there's enough trees or enough area for them to be able they brought our elk in Arkansas from out in Colorado for us to be able to hunt in this area, and they're doing that in a lot of states. But for the Ducks Unlimited, we build box lines for the wood ducks. We build nesting grounds for the other ducks. So there's a lot of things that you can do for each chapter.
Let's go back to women, and a lot of my listeners, over 30% of the listeners to Whitetail Rendezvous are women. And so give them 3 to 5 things they need to think about, even if their husband, boyfriend, father, or uncle isn't helping helping them, what should they do to get involved in the outdoors?
The first thing is, it depends on if you're bow or gun hunting. And let's just take a weapon in general. Know your weapon. That's the number one thing in my book. Always know the weapon that you're choosing. Number two is make sure you put boots on the ground. Make sure you're able to scout. Make sure that you understand what a doe track looks like or a buck track looks like. Make sure you can age an animal. That way, give it to a 3 to 4 year old so you can get those genes into your population. So the next generation of animals will be there. Fourth thing is become a member of a group. If you don't have a man in your life or another female in your life, become a member of a group. That way you can meet other hunters and have fellowship with them as well as be able to hunt with them. And the fifth thing for me and the major thing is be able to pass that on to, whether you have kids or not, pass that on to a neighbor's child. Be able to pass that experience on to a niece or any other female that's in the community.
When you mention youth, what advice would you give parents today, men and women, to get their kids, out of the house, off the video games, off their, iPhones and iPads and into the woods?
That's a real hard question. My number one thing is, and as we didn't grow up inside our house. We always were outside playing. We didn't grow up under the adult seat, as the saying goes. My suggestion to parents is start them out young. As I said, I was very, very young when I first started hunting. I started hunting with my grandfather, and then he set me up against a log, gave me, taught me my weapons to begin with. But I grew up in a hunting family and a police officer family and deputy sheriff family, so I already knew weapons, and I knew not to play with them when I wasn't there, when they wasn't there. But he taught me the weapon, taught me how to break it down, put it back together, clean it, do the whole 9 yards before I was even allowed to shoot the gun, much less carry it into the woods. So he set me up there, and the first year I was in the woods at 5, I got my first ear. But my thing is teach them that guns are not play toys, bows are not play toys. Because last week we had a child get healed over in West Virginia with a bow and arrow. Make sure that they understand that. Make sure that they are physically able to get out into the outdoors. They may have allergies or something that they can't, get into the outdoors. But make sure that. But the number one suggestion for a parent is do not push them into something that they really don't want to do. Don't push them into hunting or fishing if they just don't want to do it, because that's the worst thing you can do to any child, to push them into anything, be it sports or hunting or fishing, and they don't want to do it.
Kaylee, it's unbelievable, but we're already almost 31 minutes into the show, so I'd like you to take time and give some shout-outs to those people that have been made a difference to you, and then we'll call the show.
Well, I have to thank a lot of my sponsors, and I can't go through all 19 of them, I know that, but Steady Form, they really got my passion into the bow industry really hiked up. I mean, I love bow hunting. To Doe Girls, they provide a great cover or scent eliminator for women, be it bath products, cosmetics, and the like. Boneyard, they providing me with a wonderful, wonderful area to be able to hunt in with clover, seed, and sort of things of the like. To Rack's big game supplement, we grow some rack, and they have some. You can go to the web pages. To the smallest company, Wolfgang Products, which gives me great license protectors. Thank you guys for everything that you do for me. I hope I'm able to fulfill my promises to you guys.
Thanks so much. So on behalf of Whitetail Rendezvous, Kaylee Jackson, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Make sure you listen to the next episode when we hear about scouting for whitetails while turkey hunting. From Hunting's Life, Kevin Paulson.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.
Remember to text 33444 food plot for your free ebook.